Hello there, this is GroovyNG and welcome back to the second part in my Age of Empires breakdown series. Now today I'm actually in Renoise, and what this is my first attempt at this project, which was a bit of a failed go at it, and I spent ages on this. It was like a 23-hour project which I was trying to make good enough, but in the end it didn't quite cut it, and so I took all the stuff I liked from it and turned it into that Logic project. But it wasn't all in vain, and so I'll be jumping in and out of here to show you lots of the stuff I did with effects and lots of my ideas, which eventually kind of inspired the finished track. So it's not sounding too terrible, but I definitely had a lot of ideas here, which led to good creative decisions later on. And probably the most important one was actually in this sub bass. And so what this is this Catapult Attack.Sample. And if I go into the original library here, just this sound, I was looking for something I could turn into a bass or a kick, and I heard this. And in here, it's just got this little kind of kick sound, and this really was the foundation of lots of my drum breaks and my basses. And so I took this kick, just like this little sample, into Renoise, and I dropped it in here, and you can see that's the sample that's actually in here now, and I've just trimmed it up a bit better, and then put snap on and kind of looped it up nicely at 0 crossings. The thing about this noise is that without the filters on, it's a little bit kind of harsh and boomy. But if I put the filters on, so I've really filtered it right down here just to be the low frequencies. But what that actually meant is if I go to the end of my track and I actually bounce this sample out, if I then look at this one, I've turned it much more into a clean sine wave. So if I go back into Logic now, I took that sound, which was basically this bass noise, and I turned that into a whole bunch of different kind of leads and synths and all kinds of things. So if I just show you a few of these here, I have this like main theme going. So I thought probably the best way to show you my thought process on this would be to actually do one of these from scratch. So I've got a blank quick sampler here, and I have these two instruments I made. One was a sub bass that I sampled from that original Renoise project, and another one was a slightly more harmonically rich bass. And so I might use this one because it's a little bit more in between a sine and a saw. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a loop point. If I turn this snap on, just so I have unlimited time. So we've got a little bit of clicks and pops and things like that happening. It's also got a kick at the start of it, which I don't really need. So I can bring that in. So I needed a little fade there just to help the loop work properly. You can hear it a little bit doing it, but I think that's okay. And then I'm going to just play with this ADSR a little bit, just in the beginning, because I kind of know what I want, and I'm just going to do a bit of attack. And I like a little bit of release as well. I feel pulling out release is usually a thing when I'm doing this that helps the synth sound most realistic. It's just it sounds a little bit of synth when you let go of the key. And another thing I'm going to do is just turn on reverb right from the start, because I know that I'm going to want that in the end. So instantly, we have a more realistic sounding patch. All of it just from like a bass sample basically. But there's a lot more we can do here, and filter modulation is another really great one to give some life to your patches. So what's quite nice to do is to set the filter a little bit down, and then to have it slowly come in, but then sustain at the top. Okay, so now we've got some envelope modulation happening on the filter, and we've got our ADSR we've been messing with as well, just to bring this sound to life a little bit. And the next thing to do before we jump into these LFOs is to come into this mod matrix, and one thing to do is either do a key or velocity, but key to filter cutoff is another great one. If you just do this a little bit, it's going to mean whenever I play up the keyboard, it's going to play slightly higher on this filter. And another thing you can do is velocity also to filter cutoff, so the lighter you play something, the darker it's going to be. But I want this area that I'm playing in to sound nice, so I'm not going to dampen it down too much, so I'm going to go the other way. So a few more classic things to do with these LFOs now is to do firstly some volume wobbling, which is like tremolo, and I really like an 8th note for this. So if I set it on the rate and go to an 8th note, that's a good place to start. But it generally sounds a little bit more realistic if you use a fade in. So I'm hearing this looping point a lot now. Adding a bigger fade is helping me camouflage that better. So we just got it starting to wobble a little bit now. So volume's a really good thing to do here, and another really good one is to do pitch. So if I set this on an 8th note again and do it to pitch, this is going to give me a more of a vibrato effect. And once again, a little fade can help. So you don't always want to do, tremolo and vibrato and all these things on every instrument you do, but I'm just going to show you here all of the stuff that I think you can use to bring these synths to life, all these sounds to life. And another good technique is to do a random wave and then you do a much slower rate. So if I take this off and actually get rid of the fade for now, what it does is this kind of random pitch warbling. But you have to do it really subtly. You can also do it quickly. Which is another effect entirely. As well as using the kind of sine wave to target volume, we can also target panning and do this Autopan effect where we pan the sound from side to side. In their stereo field, and they sound similar, but they're doing slightly different things. Another really cool thing we can do is add a little bit of glide, and so this is going to make each note have a bit of like a pitch bend at the start of it. So that's really cool as well. It gives me that like Chinese woodwind or Japanese woodwind sort of feel to it. So too much of that sounds a little bit crazy, but a little bit of glide is another really cool thing you can do as well. And then one extra trick I figured out in Logic is if you go to Quick Sampler here, you can actually just change this instrument from Quick Sampler to Sampler. And it's going to retain all the information and the modulation that you had going on, all just gets chucked into the sampler basically. And then in Sampler, I think it's in Details here, we can go and put Unison on. And any of you who use Serum will do this in Serum, and you can basically make the synth sound way fatter by stacking up a bunch of voices. So if I go to say 4 voices and then turn up this random detune. So maybe around 23 is a cool place to stick at. And it's just thickened up the sound a little bit, so that's another thing to think about. And then finally, the last trick I was doing here, and I didn't do this all the time, but just on certain instruments, or certain regions even, is little pitch bends at the start. And in Quick Sampler, you've got this pitch bend range, so sometimes I will change this down to like a 1 maybe, just so I can really fine tune the pitch range. But just having a little pitch glide, just having that, just makes it sound a little bit more interesting. So I didn't want it to glide on every note, this patch, but I did want it to glide on this first note. And so sometimes you just got to draw in the pitch bends rather than adding the glide in this area. So just to summarize those effects really quickly, we're doing ADSR and filter modulation to really control the shape and envelope. And then we've got LFOs to amplitude and to pitch and to pan, all giving movement to the sounds. And we can use either Sine LFOs to do things like vibrato and tremolo, but also random LFOs to pitch, give you this sort of pitch warbling or instability to the sound. And then gliding and pitch bends as well, either drawing them in through automation or actually just turning the glide effect on in the Quick Sampler are great for adding some of that pitch movement. And then also that unison effect I showed you, where you can thicken up a sound by stacking a bunch of voices and detuning them against each other. There's one more technique I quickly want to show you because it's so cool, and what I did is drag the AOE soundtrack into this Quick Sampler again. I've just got a reverb and a half note delay on. But what I was really doing is just playing with this kind of ADSR envelope and also moving this start time around. I take off this mod wheel thing. And just trying to find little cool areas. Maybe pitching it down an octave as well. And just playing with that ADSR, I've just added a little bit of attack there, but it's made it sound really cool. So I'm just trying to find little chops, and what I was doing is finding a little chop that I liked. So that was sounding pretty cool to me. So I would just bounce these chops out, and now you can see I've made a whole load of them here. And then I would come back into this instrument and keep playing around again. Anyway, so I basically got loads of these little sample chops, and so I took all of these here, and then I created a new sampler track with all of them, which is basically this track above me here. So create a new sampler track and then put that same delay time back on, because the reverbs would have got bounced, but the delay is ascend, so it wouldn't have got bounced. So putting the delay back on, and then I basically have this sampler instrument now. With loads of cool sounds in it, and I was just adding these little chops in and around. I think one of the ones I definitely had in here was in this art bit, this nice little sound that kind of really fit nicely in here. So yeah, I think that's basically it from this one, and I've thrown lots at you again today, and I think I've got probably one more in this series, just showing you how I made the drum breaks. Basically, from all the catapult noises and the sword slashing and stuff, I managed somehow to make some fairly decent sounding breaks. So I'll be going through that in the next one, and then I think that'll be wrapping up this Age of Empires series. So I will catch you soon, and keep well till then. Peace.